I have to say, I think since COVID, the world has become a colder place, a more me, what's in it for me, I want what I want. There's certain basic needs that we need as human beings to survive. Breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis or balance, and excretion. These are the things that make people feel safe and secure. These are the things that we build upon to get to that level of esteem and self-actualization. During COVID, we lost that sense of relationship. We lost that sense of intimacy, connection. People are still struggling. People are still struggling with food insecurity because they lost their job during COVID. So what do we do with that? It is not just back to where we are. If we don't acknowledge what happened here and learn from it, I think that it could be devastating.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for hopping on board and joining us at Ride the Wave podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Fischer. You will notice a change today. You might hear another voice or see another person that you might recognize from the show. It's Jayvon Blue to my right. What's up, Jayvon? How you doing?
I'm blessed, man. Good to be here, brother.
Absolutely. Just so everybody knows, so Jayvon Blue took on a new role. He's the CEO of Ride the Wave Foundation and the new co-host of the Ride the Wave podcast. And we're honored to have Jayvon on board. We really feel like it's going to be next level. Thank you, Jayvon.
You're welcome, brother.
Yeah. And just so you guys know, so with Mark Robinson, he is a friend. We parted ways. It was for business. I'll always have love for Mark on and off the field. He does have some involvement in the community. It's not like that. We felt it was in the right direction to go with Jayvon, and we're really doing that. So we're excited to have Kim back. Hi, Kim.
Hello. Excited to be back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody, this episode, is sponsored by 100% Chiropractic in Rockaway, New Jersey. Their positive culture and personalized care make every visit fun. And if you're looking for true healing and vibrancy, go check out Dr. Matt and Dr. Sarah at 100% Chiropractic. Today. Sorry, Kim, we had quite the intro.
That's
some changes
okay.
happening. All exciting, though.
No worries, yeah.
Man, really happy Jayvon's on board. We're really going to take it to the next level. Fully active. Like I said, no hard feelings with Mark, but thank you so much for being on again, the show.
I'm excited. I'm glad to be back.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So COVID and the aftermath, really, nobody speaks about, sort of gets brushed under the rug.
Yeah.
And we're here really to go ahead and talk about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I think working in the health and wellness industry, I've seen the aftermath, not just physical activity wise, but just in people's spirits and people's lifestyle. And it's really kind of scaring me. And I feel like the drive and the pull to try to just educate people and let them understand what those effects are, because some people don't even realize that that's what it's still from. And then what do we do? What are some things that we can do for ourselves in the workplace, in our families, to try to just, address that? Because I think everybody's sort of trying to sweep it under the rug. And, and rightly so, nobody wants to think about it. It was a really devastating time. But when you have after effects from it, and it's affecting your body emotionally, spiritually, physically, you want to do something about that, because all those things will come out as, disease or dis-ease if you don't address them.
Yeah, I like that.
So, I really want to just try to help educate people today and talk more about, what people have gone through and maybe make some suggestions on where we can go from here.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think we tend to forget, right? The hype, the fear that was being pumped. All at the same time, every airwave, nonstop, everybody was afraid of it all at once. Full focus, all the news and everything. So we do have short memories.
Yeah.
And there hasn't really been closure, especially for younger people. Like nobody came up and said, here's what it was. Here's what we've been through. Kids didn't go to graduation. it's been affected like that.
Because that was going to be my question, Kim. When it comes to, I mean, you basically answered the first one. I was going to say, so do you think that people are trying to forget, or they honestly still processing?
I mean, I think that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
My gut would say forget, because I'm not sure they know what to process or how to process it. So I think if they could get information and understand why they're feeling the way they're feeling right now, it would be easier to process. But because everybody's just pushed it away. Yeah. So, I mean, and back
Nobody's
to
acknowledged the trauma, really.
No. And like to your point, I mean, my own son missed his college graduation. Oh. And you go, oh, college, that's not a big deal. But no, it really is, because
prom, all that.
He missed half of his senior year, which was the last part of like his kind of chance to break away and start a new life and become an adult. And he missed that. He was back home with his dad, which is sort of like not what you're doing at the end of your college, time frame. And then even now, I don't think that the connections that people would have, the way you start to break away from family and start to go out on your own, that was stifled.
It was. There, with 9/11, there was a unity to it.
Right.
If you're from New Jersey, New York especially, there was something in the air. And even though it was tragic and something that was negative, it did unite us, and we came together. I didn't feel like that with COVID. In fact, it did the opposite. It was very divisive. It was that fear, fear, fear. Nobody knew what it was, and everybody's pointing fingers, and you can't go here, can't go there. And it really, there's no national discussion on it. There's no forum or prime time of, all right, here's what we've been through.
Right.
Here's what we've done. Now we're moving on. Here's the positives. And
right. I mean, that was the start of it. Was it did divide us. It didn't have a choice. I don't think they knew what was going on. And I am not a medical professional. I'm in the health and wellness industry, but I am not a doctor. I am not a, epidemiologist or whatever I would need to be. But the goal was either hunker down with who you're with, and if you're not with, hunker down alone.
So what are you saying, Kim? It wasn't population control?
I'm not going there.
So to that extent, who do you think was affected more psychologically? Like basically what I would say is, do you think the household was affected more than the job force or just outside on the street with homeless people? Like, who do you think got hit the worst when it comes to the structure of things?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I would say that.
All of it.
Yeah. Okay.
I think in different ways. I think families could have benefited from it in a sense of it brought back that spending time together. There's so many now in society, families don't do what they used to do. They don't always get to eat together. They don't always get to spend time together. If mom and dad are working, they may not be home when the kids are home. The kids might be with, babysitter, nanny, after school program, what have you. So this gave families a chance to have that quality time together.
On the flip side, if the environment was a poor environment,
exactly,
that could have been a break for the kid.
Yes.
Going and seeing friends
and
having lunch, having that interaction socially. I know it's totally different than when we went. I know a teacher, the kids are mostly in their phones these days, which I think the phones should be out of the schools, by the way.
Yeah.
They should just be taken out completely. Kids should not have, access to phones, maybe a flip phone for emergencies or something.
Right.
That's it. Because, if a teacher leaves, back in the day, they could see somebody bullying or pushing somebody. But now they could just have their head down, see no bullying. They could be all digital. So that, that opened up a whole isolation with the kids.
Right.
Bullying behind the scene.
Right.
Them, the keyboard courage, taking out all the anxiety.
Right.
Did you find that to be an issue as well? Like kind of to Jayvon's question too.
You are going to get that. And again, looking at, I think I always try to err on looking for the positive in any situation because the world is already negative. But to your point, At the time I was working with in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, and my little sister, obviously we didn't live together, so she was kind of hunkered down with her family. I hunkered down alone, which that's another point to talk about. But to stay on the family unit, she would get subsidized food. So now they're not going to school. She would get free breakfast, free lunch. Now, how are they eating? There was 5 kids in that family at the time.
Wow.
Now, I know in trying to check in with her, the schools recognized that and did continue the program, and the parents could go in the morning and get food or whatever and then take it home. But in the scary part of the whole thing, who wanted to even leave their house? So, that was another side.
We tend to forget how that was.
Yeah.
Nobody knew. Nobody was leaving. I remember getting annoyed at my friend for having like somebody in the house because it was so unknown.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't know, and it instilled that fear factor of life. Like, this could end your life. And there were, unfortunately, a lot of people that did die because of COVID. So that scare tactic factor, whatever, it just made it worse. I mean, I have asthma. I didn't want to die. I mean, I'm a healthy person otherwise, but there were a lot of healthy people that had pre-existing conditions that died from COVID.
That stress just adds to that health issue. The placebo effect is a real study. If you give 4 people are taking a pill, 3 take sugar pills, 2 take regular Advil,
right? Everybody's
not going to have a headache because it's that mental.
Right. So, I mean, it was a scary thing, but I think COVID took away the things that we need innately to feel safe and secure.
Yeah, it was a house of cards.
Right. And that's where, we were chatting a little bit before the show started on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but there's certain basic needs that we need as human beings to survive. And our base level is the physiological level, which is breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis or balance, and excretion. There were people that were struggling with just breathing, right? So there's an innate thing, food. How many people, like the food stores were starting to be...
How about that toilet paper?
Exactly.
When it first started?
The toilet paper, people, and then people were
things.
hoarding because they were afraid. And, if you're all stressed out, you don't sleep well. So that's that base layer that we need as human beings to feel safe and secure. That was taken away from us. So it's almost like getting your legs taken out right from underneath you. Right above that is the sense of safety. So security of body, we lost that. Employment, people lost that. Resources, lost that. Morality, the family. Yeah, I was by myself. I was away from my kids.
How was your experience for you personally?
Oh, it was awful. It was awful.
So you were by yourself?
Completely by myself for
a month?
About 2.5 months. Because I got sick. And they claimed that it was not COVID. I got tested, but in the beginning, they didn't know how to do the testing. So the original test, they did that swab in your nose, but they needed to go really deep. And the lady that did mine didn't go deep. And I remember leaving thinking, you didn't do it right. And it came out negative. But I coughed and coughed and coughed and coughed, and I couldn't breathe, and fever, and and I was by myself. And I remember one night sitting there just crying and saying, Lord, please, I don't want to die alone.
Yeah.
And, so, I mean, just that kind of thing, talk about health and then property. So already we've got 2 layers that are supposed to be our foundation that were gone. Then we go to the 3rd layer and we're going up in a pyramid. Love and belonging, friendship, family, and intimacy. Okay, a lot of that was taken. So we're going all the way up the chart and we've lost all these things. Well, these are the things that make people feel safe and secure. These are the things that we build upon to get to that level of esteem and self-actualization.
What about the spiritual? Where do you think
Well, the spiritual would come in with, I think, the idea of the safety. It could even come in the loving and belonging.
Yeah.
Which again is middle of the pyramid.
The love aspect.
Yeah.
those needs really. In the
Absolutely. And people find, through faith and stuff like that is their sense of community. Well, we all lost our sense of community because you weren't supposed to be talking to anyone or getting close to anyone so all of those things, and we need those things. We were not created to be individual people.
Right? When we're created in the beginning, in the maker's relationship, Holy Father, Son, Holy Spirit,
right?
Swirling in one relationship. We're created for relationship.
Exactly.
And that's the one thing that's taken away completely and attacked. If I was the devil, though, that's what I would go after.
Absolutely.
Because isolation
crazy.
And how not having a human touch, not having comfort,
so bad.
Everything. And the path is to the person because we realize that.
Yeah.
That the technology, the distractions, that's all the flood really. And the true purpose, the spirit that just fills us up is those interactions connecting to the spirit in the person.
Right.
Really, that is everything. And that I really do. That's what gets us out of everything and anything. The homeless community, if they take on Wave Mentorship Program, which is doing great, by the way, we're glad that they're starting to be proven that they're working in the community. So we're developing that mentorship program. Everybody, it's coming and it's working. We're excited. I nearly lost my mind. Thank you to Swavek. Sky Llama Studio is a great place. Totowa, New Jersey. Check them out. If you want a quality show, this is what's up. Yeah, I was kind of losing it because I knew it started to work. There was an energy to it. Structurally, though, I was a little bit like a chicken with my head cut off, but then this guy right here came in, swooped in like a champion. We got all the tools. We're on our way, Kim.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah, and conversations like this about rehashing some things that have happened and talking about it again. I think that a lack of gratitude too, and not enough appreciation is key. We tend to move on from things without looking back and being like, you know what? That was taken away in an instant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And to be able to stay grounded, literally and figuratively. Here we're talking about this pyramid of our foundation being taken away. How do you stay grounded in that?
Right.
You can't. And then it goes up where the next level is esteem. So self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others, respect by others. I have to say, I think since COVID, the world has become a colder place, a more me, what's in it for me? I want what I want. There's people, I work, like I said, in a corporate fitness center, and there's people that had to work on site before COVID, and now they're coming back. I don't want to come back. I don't want
the entitlement. No.
Right, but so again, it's just that respect of others, and because during COVID you had no choice but to focus on yourself and your immediate family, and so people haven't gotten out of that. They haven't realized that they need, because have they built those layers back up again to be safe and secure? Because you can't have the esteem if you don't have the levels below it. So it's like saying, let's build a house, but we're going to build this little tiny skinny foundation and throw a big steel building on top.
Yeah.
That foundation's going to crumble. You've got to build that solid foundation again. And that's what we haven't done. We have not gone back and made sure, hey, are you safe and secure? Wow. Do you have a job? Because a lot of people still don't. Mm-hmm. People are still struggling. People are still struggling with food insecurity because they lost their job during COVID. So what do we do with that? It is not just back to where we are.
Yeah.
What do you think,
Jayvon? I think, like you were talking, and I was just stuff was just coming in my mind. And in Genesis, when God is creating, He says everything's good, everything's good.
Right.
But if you keep reading, the first time God ever said something wasn't good, where He said it's not good for man to be alone.
Exactly.
So to pinpoint on your point, that to be alone, God called it not good for man to be that. And He had so much. Like, look how much Adam had, right?
Yeah.
Then 2, Proverbs 18:1 says that isolation leads to selfish desires.
Yes.
Right? This is Solomon and his wisdom. And I love it because what you're saying is now when people come back into the workforce, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want, so we have this entitlement and we have this pride and this selfishness. Like it's all about me because for 3 years, it was all about me.
It had to be.
Right? And so my question, do you think that's more, I'm going back even like pre-COVID, right? Do you think that's more of a Western context, like a Western ideology that we have adopted, where it's like we can be in our own home, right? And there's 50 homes on one block. Every home is going to have their own lawnmower,
right?
Instead of being like, okay, there's 5 people, let's share, right? Yeah. So our Western ideology is like, no, I need one
good analogy.
You have a lawnmower, I have a lawnmower, so I don't need you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So do you think the Western mindset played a huge part in cultivating that selfishness? Like, did COVID put an extra fire on the selfishness is what I'm saying?
I think so. I mean, I think, it's interesting. When I was married, we lived on a block where everyone didn't have everything. They all chipped in and got a snowblower because why does everybody need one? So I think it depends. I mean, I think certain mindsets are, and this was a neighborhood where they were very close. So they chose to kind of get outside of their comfort zone and really get into each other's lives, kind of like we talk about at church with the small groups, where like let's get together, let's build a life together, let's live life together.
Yeah.
And so then there isn't that need to mine, give me mine, and hold on to it. But if you don't get to know people, you don't let your walls down. So then, why do I want to share a lawnmower with you? I don't know you. I don't, it's a little uncomfortable. So, I think part of it is that Western mindset. Part of it is just people being afraid to be vulnerable.
Yeah, and we're so transactional too. And I think that was a really good point Jayvon made there.
Yeah, I love that.
In general, because we tend to be laser focused, go, go, go. And that consumerism, we panicked.
Yes.
When we hit that, it was like that on overdrive. So we're seeing human nature. What does it go to? Toilet paper, like things like that.
Right.
The idiosyncrasy, or ideography, or whatever the word is. I can't really think of the word, but yeah, just the oddness of where we as people, what we focus on.
Right.
Is interesting to me, what people panic about. Right. But one thing was sure, it was collective. We were all on the same page with a fear. That's the first time I think that in my lifetime I can remember. I don't know if maybe our parents were underneath chairs during the Russian bombs, and it's always the end of the world. Right? It always is, and it's really in scripture too. History repeats itself. And you mentioned before, it's about building that foundation, really. So how do we build that foundation, Kim? What do you think the key is? Education, or going back and saying, here's what we've been through, here's what had happened, and have an action plan?
I think it is the education of letting people know, this is why you're feeling this way. I mean, I just sat with a woman today at my job who is experiencing intense anxiety. And she had it before COVID, but, in talking with her, I kept thinking to myself, she's just feeling insecure, unsafe. And because we've not addressed it, we've not let people know that it's not that it's okay, but this is why you may be feeling more anxious, more worried, because you were feared for your life, your home, your safety, your security, your family, the list goes on. And there wasn't, we did have, a vaccine, but no one ever, where did it come from? Where did the whole virus come from? Yeah. Could this happen again? It was a science
project on a larger scale, doing it next time, pretty decent. Wow. Like for the 666, it really is preparing a way. Sort of paving that way, because people, it was amazing to see, fell right in line to that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
really quickly.
Listen, like I said, I have pre-existing conditions.
And so everybody knows too, we're here not discounting or taking away anybody that was sick from the virus or passed. I know somebody who was younger. So it's not to take away or saying that it didn't happen. What we're saying is that, for me, I do think that there is a large psychological aspect to it, spiritual, and that fear that gets pumped through does add an element.
Absolutely.
For this thing.
And I know for me, like I said, I got very sick. I was sick from March to May.
Yeah.
Every time I would get better, I'd get better for a few days, I'd get hit again. Was it COVID? I don't know. They said no, but that's a long time. But if not, then my weakness kicked in. So of course, I mean, and I've had COVID twice, and I've been really sick both times, like really sick, where I need to go instantly and get some kind of medication. And so it is no joke, so for the people that want to get the vaccines and whatever, I mean, I did. And now I notice that they're changing the parameters, but it's scary. Like, I got to be honest, I'm afraid not to, because I get so sick when I've had it. What's going to happen if I don't, you know what I mean?
Long term. I didn't like the way it was put out. The way it was put out quickly.
Right.
No long term.
Right.
Underneath a project, I think that was not really the pharmaceutical companies, I think.
Right. I mean, my son's a doctor, so I had some sort of inside knowledge on things, in terms of his opinion, I should say.
Okay. What did he have to say?
Yeah.
He said, "You better get it, Mom.
Okay.
I want you to." So, but again, I'm not saying that, but there's still that fear factor is there. Yeah. And now you got it, and you may be protected against this, but what is the actual vaccine going to do to me? Yeah. So we're back to that lack of safety and security, and so anyway, I'm not looking to bash one way or the other.
No, we're not.
I'm just looking to say that it continues to create. Whereas 9/11 was awful. And I know, like, I lived in Cranford at the time. We lost a lot of people. There was people on my block that were in the city at the time. And luckily no one on my block passed, but people in town that we knew. But I felt like over time that dissipated quickly because the threat was in a location. It hit some different areas, but it wasn't widespread. It wasn't everybody that was affected by it. And we knew how to stop it in a sense, where it was coming from, whereas this was airborne, or like you had to breathe. So I felt like the impact was different. Devastating as well. I mean, both of them were just.
So how would you put the emphasis? Because when I'm hearing this, and I'm hearing vaccines and this after effect, and what about the emphasis on nutrition, right? Because I think that you had a small pocket of people when the dust was settling who was teaching on that as a way where people can now, like, this is the opportunity to get your health right. And I think there was a boom. You had the plant-based boom where vegan and then the plant-based. So how would you say? Well, I would ask this question. Do you think that eating from the earth and just eating well has a better effect to a person's body so that we're prepared if anything comes?
100%. Because what you put into your body is sort of what you get out. Your immune system is so important. And if we can keep the body healthy, it will keep the immune system healthier, which will allow us to fight disease, et cetera. Gut health is considered your second brain. I mean, there's just so much that goes into what you eat and how well you take care of your body in terms of your body being able to handle even just stress. Eating makes a difference. So, it goes back to, again, with all that's happening, is educating people on stress relief, educating people on proper eating. And I'm not going to even go into, is vegan better than vegetarian, than pescatarian, than It doesn't matter.
Dr. Matt will
Everyone's
get in the pescatarian. Yeah.
everyone's
Or maybe not
bodies are
that.
different.
What's the all meat one? The one that's all meat.
Oh,
Or mostly meat.
That's
Carnivore.
Not carnivore quite.
and now it's animal-based diet.
Oh, okay.
Right.
You know?
He doesn't
But
go
you
that
know,
far.
I mean, everybody's body's different.
Yeah.
Everybody's reaction. You know, some people, I don't even, but there is healthy eating in any of those realms. And the body needs specific nutrients in order to function.
Wow.
And that's what it comes down to is no matter what of those diets you're talking about, you need to make sure you're getting the nutrients in that you need. And that will keep your immune system healthier. That will allow your body, like I said, stress-wise, to handle things better. And that's a lot of the stuff that's not happening right now. You know, people are turning to, sad to
Drugs,
say,
alcohol.
drugs and alcohol
Yeah.
and, you know,
Poor eating, fast food,
yes,
it's all that.
you know, high sugar and like all those things affect your body's ability to live in, as I said earlier, homeostasis or that balance.
Well, the fentanyl went up, all the drugs, the kids' suicide rates, all that. I think one of the, you know what's an epidemic too? Us not loving tough and speaking up for one another and rocking the boat when it's not always comfortable.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is saving someone's life that may be in a dire situation, but a lot of people don't say anything because they don't want to rock the boat and they're walking on eggshells and stuff like that. But I personally think if you're doing that, you're doing a family or a friend a disservice. I look at it like I'd rather rock the boat, look a little crazy, look like the bad guy if it's the end result is for somebody to either save their life or at least get it. Because if I had a blind spot like that and I'm just going by, I would be like, I want somebody to let me know.
Wow.
Right.
If I was stubborn enough, maybe I won't hit me then, but me seeing that in somebody, like if you were had certain tendencies and I never brought it up, I would never do that to you, Kim, or anything like that. And I think that that's important. You know, go, and also the way the system is not set up for us to help each other. You know, if somebody goes in for a wellness check, they say, oh, I'm fine. That doesn't mean that they're fine. It should be easier to not commit per se. I'd say like that's not, it should be easier to get somebody an assessment for somebody else given the circumstances. And like you said, that nobody's really discussed the aftermath of COVID. And I think that trauma, we block it out as individuals and as society too.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, the tough thing is there's a lot of people that I've encountered that are struggling, but you can't help them if they don't want to be helped. So that's a frustrating thing.
But at least
as well.
bringing it up though. At least bringing it up.
You can. And I know I've had situations where I have.
Yeah.
And you know, even looking at it from a fitness standpoint, just somebody wants to change their life, you know, wants to become more active. But if they don't want to change, I have every answer for you. I could tell you exactly how to get to the goal that you want to get to, what you need to do, how you need to live. But you have to want it. And if you don't want it or you don't see that you have an issue, we can't help people. So that's a frustrating thing too. And it's interesting. I'm doing a certification for a drug and alcohol rehab fitness specialist. And in doing that, I went.
It's a mouthful.
Exactly. I had to go to an
Say it
AA
3 times
meeting.
fast.
And so it was interesting because we're sitting around the table and in, you know, at AA meetings, people introduce themselves, you know, hi, I'm Kim. And then they would say, I'm an alcoholic. Well, they came to me and I was like, hi, I'm Kim. And I'm studying to be a drug and alcohol rehab, you know, fitness specialist. And, you know, and the director there looked at everybody and said, should we let her stay? But it was so interesting because it led me into seeing what happens when people don't want to change. And there's people that have been in recovery for years. And, you know, they ask questions like, has anybody relapsed? And a gentleman raised his hand. Yes, I knew it was happening, blah, blah, blah. So just making those changes in anything, whether it be drugs and alcohol, homelessness, inactivity, you may see somebody that's at a level of stress and what have you, but if they don't see it and they don't want to change,
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that, like, in the corporate setting, I know my company requires us to do a mental health first aid course, they call it.
Oh, nice.
And they go through all these different things that you could have. And one of them is about suicide. And to ask someone that you think may be suicidal, you know, do you have thoughts of killing yourself? And do you have a plan? And it's sort of like, can you imagine saying that to someone?
Yeah.
But you have to. So to your point, there are certain things that you have to do.
Yeah.
You know, but that person would need to want to change.
How about building trust before to get them to open up?
Absolutely.
You know, we're noticing the mentorship program is working because it's that friendship.
Yes.
It's one-on-one. It's spending time above and beyond just somebody walking you through an application and stuff like that. It's help walking you through the interview process, prepping you before. You're going to do great. That radiate positivity, the first step we're going over with the program. You know, you're going to be fine, to Heather before she went to get a waitress job and she got the job.
Yeah.
So it's really that one client until the end, unless they opt out.
Yeah.
And it's working there because it's a little bit too cold, like you mentioned before, and transactional, and everything's spread apart. Resources is too much red tape, all that. So the path is to the person. It is making that change. Yeah, within the program.
And I mean, that's what we talk about, at least in the fitness. No one's going to come in and sit down and honor what I say or trust what I say unless I've built some type of relationship with you. And I've sat and listened to where have you been? What struggles have you had in the past? What successes have you had? What failures have you had? Why would you want to talk to me about those things? You know, your goals, if you don't think that I have some skin in the game.
Right.
So I always say that, like, don't, you know, again, in fitness, don't just walk up to somebody on the floor and like, do you want to train with me? Develop a relationship first.
Yeah.
And I think, again, going all the way back, circling back to during COVID, we lost that sense of relationship. We lost that sense of intimacy, connection. We need to build that back up again.
Yeah, absolutely. And anybody that sees this, now Jayvon's on board, sees our successes from now on as this thing grows and takes off. It is a product of relationships.
Yes.
Me asking and communicating, asking for help, questions, doing, not just book, you know, behind the computer AI all the time or anything like that. It's relationships, asking for help and being there for each other. You know, Tom, who's going to be a potential guest, works for Colgate.
Right.
You know, it's those relationships. It was something had happened to him personally and I was helping him out or just being encouraging via text.
Right.
You know, so you can make fast friends along the way. It's fun too. Yeah. It really is. There's so much more value in any drugs, sex, any material possessions at all. It's really within each person, that spirit.
There's this quote that I love, and it says,
it's hard to get that message across.
That people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Exactly.
And I always keep that to my heart when it comes to dealing with people that are going through trauma, addiction, you know, things like that. Because the truth of the matter is, and I'm going back to the AA meeting, and let me know what you think about this. Do you think that because they're in a room full of people that they can relate to, like everybody's going through the same problems, do you think that could be part of the problem of why nobody succeeds out of it as fast? And basically what I mean by that is, if we keep talking about the same struggles and there's not a person like Kim in the mix where they have, like, if you're talking about, no, this doesn't define you, like what happened to you is not your life story. Like, and speaking into their identity and what they're called, like you were put on this earth. If they don't hear that, do you think that going to the meetings, and not saying that they're not useful, but going to the meetings for a long period of time with no exit plan, right? No change of identity, anything like that, do you think that's hindering and becoming toxic to the person?
No.
Okay.
Because they don't think I can relate to them. So right away, I could feel it. It was almost like, this person's from the outside. She has no idea what we're going through. Mm-hmm. So I think that it does help to have people that have gone through the program but have been successful. That means something to them. And again, because it's that identity that you've been through the program, and you're successful. And then sharing that it doesn't have to define you. It doesn't. All the things that you said, I think, are amazing, but I think it's more important to come from someone that's succeeded in the program before. And so I was trying to share, like, I'm not a drug addict, I'm not an alcoholic, but I've struggled with food and exercise. And so utilizing that almost as a, I guess, addiction in a sense, battled an eating disorder. And, it was a sense of control. No one could force me to eat. If I didn't want to eat, they couldn't force me to do things if I didn't want to do them. Mm-hmm. I could exercise 7 days a week if I wanted. No one could stop me.
Yeah.
So
I also think meeting people where they're at.
Exactly.
And finding what could work for, just because they may be able to make a meal doesn't mean they could make it if they're homeless out in the street. What are they working with? Do they have pans? Do they have pots? Or they have maybe one of those blenders with batteries in it and they can make a smoothie. Yeah. So working with what they're given too is important, because Dr. Bo taught me that lesson early. Yeah. When she was on the show. It's not, don't just go into community, assuming that they need certain things, ask.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, finding out, and, sometimes people will share, but again, they're going to share more with you if they feel trust in you, if they have a connection. They're not going to share with you if they just meet you today. You need to develop that and let them know, as you said, how much you care. Show them how much you care, and that it's not a job. It's not, you really want a relationship with them.
Yeah.
Man, if you're
and not looking for a quick fix. I think the beauty about the person who has the heart to give and serve is that they're in this until change happens.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Not in this to say, well, I gave you 12 steps or I gave you this. Why haven't you done it yet? Like, this is proven success. And it's like, no, brother, sister, walk with them and create an environment where, bro, we're here to pass this to the person. I'm here for you, nothing else. Right. So I think that's big. And this is one point. I want to go back to COVID real quick. When it comes, because this is what happened during COVID as well, because I experienced this, right? Many did. Food addiction, right? Mm-hmm. Now, during COVID, a lot of people gained a lot of weight, and they have not come back down, right? So they're trying to battle this.
I might have had some extra cheeseburgers myself.
It was crazy. Stimulus checks was coming. People were just spending money like crazy. We cannot forget this. So do you think that because we were so isolated, do you think that food addiction, or should we even call it addiction? Like, what would that be when you had a large amount of people indulging in food? Like, what would is that non-discipline or?
It's pleasure seeking.
Okay.
And again, our sense of safety and security was taken away. We were grasping at anything to feel better, to feel more comfortable. Wow. Drinking went up.
Right.
I remember, like, in my neighborhood, it would suddenly be midday and, okay, let's go outside, socially distance in a circle, and let's drink some wine. Or you were just trying to feel better.
All the people that did crazy stuff, like the guys that had their boxer shorts on and stood up, and like all the crazy antics going on with people too, like doing funny stuff over virtuals.
I mean, they were
getting fired for ridiculous stuff, like having no pants on and just getting up and whatever. The weirdness in people definitely came out virtually. That's for sure. When people were bored and didn't really have much. I wonder how much the OnlyFans kicked up in that unfortunate stuff with women and the abuse and the drugs and things like that nobody takes into account of the money. And the homeless population just skyrocketed. And everybody also, Heather has brought it up on the show, people forget about Sandy.
Yeah.
Too, and how much that displaced a bunch of people nobody really talks about. So you had Sandy, or previously 9/11 Sandy, and then that other hurricane. So it has been a triple whammy for people that we just in our own lives don't talk about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, people still are seeking that, to fill that hole, to fill that gap. And they don't understand. And I think this is where the education comes in is, you're never going to fill that hole unless you go back to those base layer of what's missing still. What is still missing? And listen, I was looking for a remote job because I wanted to be able to live wherever I wanted to live and go wherever I wanted to go. But when during COVID, we were able to keep activities for the people in the fitness center wasn't open, but we were able to keep programming and stuff on. So I worked from home, and then they wanted us to come back in like November of that year. And we were all panicked. And so I had a team of 5 days in a week. So we each took one day, and we worked from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., one day a week. And I have to be honest, I was so nervous going back. It was the best thing I could have ever done. I did not realize how much I missed human contact.
Yeah.
And you still had to keep distance, and people still had masks on, but I was seeing human beings, and they were like within touching range. And it was crazy. So, I really think now the people that want these remote positions, I don't know. I don't know if I want that. As much as I would love the freedom,
yeah,
I think maybe the hybrid is the way to go.
Yeah, I like the hybrid meeting and like going to get a conference room and doing that. It's nice to control schedules, and especially if you have family, kids.
Yes, because I
there are plus and minuses, I guess.
Right. I also got more work done at home than I get done at work.
I do too. I get too distracted. I want to talk to people too much. Go to their offices. I never understood why somebody would chat somebody or like do a message. I would just walk in the office.
Walk to their office.
I get myself in too much trouble. I'm better off home.
Right. But so that's the thing again, is there are benefits that came out of the changes, but people aren't realizing that instead of like we're sitting here now. I mean, you and I have done podcasts where we were on the computer.
Yeah.
It's a whole different thing.
Yeah. We didn't even release it.
Because you just don't have that same connection.
No, you don't.
And
there's a feeling to this sitting down. We've created a space where there's a spirit, there's an energy to it.
And you can see body language, you can see expressions better. So there really is something.
Something that's even more wild to even understand is inside the prison system, the worst thing that can happen to an inmate is isolation.
Yes.
You get put in a hole, it's like,
it's terrible.
Now you would think when, but Gen Pop it's so much going on, it's so much danger.
Yeah.
No, like it's being in the hole, because now it's just you and you.
Yep.
And when you're there with no human contact, it's like you go to a different place.
Absolutely.
And now you actually have to address yourself. You got to think about past thoughts. You got to think about everything you didn't do. All this stuff starts to hit your mind. And I think, when you don't have the human aspect, you're not truly living as a human.
Exactly.
So I think if the prison system thought it would be best as a discipline, I think that the world should be looking, this is not good for us.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the thing. I mean, even in prison, it's a sense of community. You're all in a similar place. You're all, unfortunately, there for similar type reasons. And so you can relate to each other. And it may be a dysfunctional community in a sense of, but still, it's a sense of community. Work is a sense of community. Church is a sense of community. Yeah. They're all different types of communities. And so those are the things that we need.
I wonder how many people went to the drawing board too and actually made some corrections or found, all right, this is God sitting me down. I have to explore some things about myself, maybe try a new workbook or so for people that were go, or they were in a position that was more physical, it allowed them their body to rest.
Exactly.
And sit down. So there were people that benefited from the experience as well.
There was definitely positive things that came out of it. Absolutely. And like I said, it goes back to the family unit was able to, in a good situation, able to kind of re-solidify themselves. Parents were able to spend more time with kids. Kids lost out on community with their friends, which for kids is very difficult. Kids need that.
I felt so bad too. Rutgers was doing really well. The basketball team, they'd never do well. The first year they were doing well. Kids are looking like they're cruising.
Yeah.
And then COVID hits. I was like, that sucks for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was
terrible
just
timing.
And I'm not sure those are sort of phases in life.
Yeah, they're pivotal.
High
They're
school,
life
college, starting school, younger kids learning to be away from their parents. And so there were milestones in life that people didn't necessarily get to go through. And it does affect your ability to mature and go on to that next level.
Yeah.
So
and the schools they didn't go back. They didn't go back to
Right.
those classes and have the ceremonies again. The president didn't go up and didn't formally close out, hey, COVID's over. We really appreciate the youth and the veterans, and have a ceremony,
Right.
Have some professional closure to it, and maybe offer up a holiday.
Right.
One year for kids, like something.
Do you think if this were to happen again, can we survive it?
It's a good question.
Based off what people know today,
Right.
what happened, vaccines, people dying, people overcoming. Do you think as America, I just stick it to our country?
If we don't acknowledge what happened here and learn from it, I think that it could be devastating. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think the next one is the ushering the revealing.
So
I think that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the next one's a big one.
Hopefully people will start to understand, even anxiety and depression. Listen, that is a medical disease.
Yeah.
But there's so much more of it now.
Yeah.
And, I think people just need to kind of take a step back and look into themselves and really just try to figure out, okay, what's going on? Because you can only drink so much, take so many drugs, gamble, whatever your sort of addiction or your thing is, but that numbs or gets rid of the issue for a little while.
Right. It's not
You
being
have to go to the base of what's going on.
And there's strategies for that.
Absolutely.
John Gordon
There's
has
so many.
He's got Playbook. Damon West has Coffee Bean, Seed, John Gordon, Wavemaker training is going to have workbooks that are going to eventually be coming back or coming out when we do that. So ours will be out. Jayvon will do our part in helping other people get to their purpose, create a roadmap and that kind of stuff. So we do have plans for a full on training with that.
Love
so
that.
we're going to have our own kind of lane for that, which is nice. And it really is that. It's I don't know. I just think that people don't understand what they're made of inside, like what they really have the ability to do. I don't know. I think I think everybody assumes a lot.
Right.
And is in a mirrors of not realizing what they're really capable of. Yeah. Like as we go pursue this thing, it's going to go above and beyond anything that we ever thought possible within our lives. And it just goes to show that you can step into a paradigm and speak it out, be persistent in good deeds, and it will be fruitful and multiply. And now you're so set aside. If you show up on time, that's it. You know what the hardest part about all this is technology and getting people to show up to complete the projects or to see the projects through.
Right.
So if you're a young person right now, all you got to do is show up on time and just do and hustle. Oh man, what an advantage.
Yeah.
See, so
what a major advantage.
And that plays, so you're into fitness, right, Kim?
Yeah.
So that would play, I would think, this is my opinion, is that I think the first thing that would help people show up on time, if they can build consistency and just going to the gym once a week.
Right.
There's some, and maybe you can speak on this because I feel it when I go to the gym, right? I'm finally getting down there, busting down 20 pounds.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah,
so what do you think fitness can provide for those people that are going through like dealing with anxiety, depression, and how can fitness play a part in their growth to come out of that?
So just the chemicals that your body produces, dopamine, serotonin, when we exercise are huge because that contributes to anxiety, depression, and all of that. The physical release, but also just to your point of being able to realize you can do it. But you can't jump in. You've got to set, we always talk about SMART goals. So they're specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're realistic, and they're time sensitive.
Yeah, I love that.
And so, specific, okay, I'm fine with somebody saying, I'm going to come to the gym and exercise 2 days a week. Now, is that enough? Maybe not.
One thing I want to add for what Dr. Matt had said is a little bit of a shift of perspective in people's mind too, looking at as building a skill set.
Yeah.
So a foundation, like you were saying before, of instead of just doing 10 reps or whatever it is and measuring it, operate as you're building that foundation to get a skill set, almost like a professional.
Yeah.
It's like going in with that mindset, not just, checking off boxes for whatever it is.
But if people can just create a habit, be accountable, that's helpful. Yeah. But you don't want to say, okay, I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week. You're going to fail.
Yeah.
I want people to set up things that they're going to feel successful. And if you say you're going to go twice a week, but you go 3, woohoo, now like you're really excited.
Yeah.
So it's building that positive experience, building those positive feelings and feeling successful would be huge.
Wow. So do you think that it would be wise for a person to start that consistent journey with themselves or with a team of people?
I think that we are more able to give up on ourselves than other people. If I tell you I'm going to go to the gym with you, I'm not going to cancel on you. I might cancel on myself.
Wow. Yeah, accountability.
So it's the accountability and teamwork. You're building each other up.
Yeah,
You don't want to go to the gym today. I'm going to be like, come on, let's go, So.
And for people that might think they're alone or, a church locally, there's meetups is an app. That's a group.
Yeah.
There's Facebook, I think, has some groups. I know Airbnb has experiences. So things like that, just finding a little bit of a group of people that share those activities. So if you want to get physically fit, maybe join a mountain biking group.
Exactly.
They go mountain biking and then hang out after or something like that.
Right. Find the things that you enjoy, but most times, even group fitness, taking a class.
Yeah.
For people there are definitely people that want to do it themselves, don't want to be involved, and that's okay. They're usually more motivated.
Wow.
So, but just finding ways to get outside your comfort zone, meet even one other person. It doesn't have to be a big group. Wow. One other person. Get that human touch.
1% rule. Yeah. Just change your environment just 1% each day. Just a little bit, just to etch your way.
Yep.
And next thing you know,
Yeah.
You've created those habits 50 days later, 30 days later.
Yeah, they say 21 days.
21 days.
Takes 21 days to create a habit.
I thought it was 22 or 32. I thought there was a 2 on there.
21 days.
21 days. We were having this conversation in the last episode.
Yeah. But so you may think about it, it's 3 weeks.
Yeah.
If you can consistently do something for 3 weeks, it becomes more of a habit.
I agree.
So,
Start off with setting that alarm.
Right.
Just set it consistently every morning. Just get up no matter what.
Yep. And one thing. It doesn't have to be 15 because that's overwhelming. Again, the goal is success. So for somebody that's really struggling, depression, anxiety, what have you, one thing. Call your neighbor, find a friend, go to the gym, like meetup group, whatever, one thing. Right. Find one thing to do.
No, you've been great, Kim. Again, it's always so nice to have you.
Yeah.
You know, I know that you had mentioned that you're in the process of figuring things out. Is there any website or any program that you want to plug right now, or you want to hold off your
So, I mean, I do, again, I'm so interested in I've got an 8-week revolving nutrition and recovery program. I'm also adapting that program to health and homelessness.
I love that.
So we're going to do, start to develop some programs that I can take to homeless shelters or even, what are they? I can never remember the in-between housing.
Oh, like the sober living? Or
I guess, but
halfway house?
Well,
kind of like a halfway, or where you go after if you can't stay in the shelter anymore. There's I forget what it's called, but anyway, like interim housing, I think.
Yeah.
But because people need to understand things like eating on a budget.
Yeah.
You want to eat healthy on a budget, and it's a lot easier to eat crap on a budget.
Yeah.
So how do you eat healthy on a budget? How to get exercise in and why.
Yeah, you can get some yogurt, maybe some chocolate chips, start reducing them slowly.
Yeah.
Some things that
I mean, there's lots of
normally you
stuff
wouldn't.
that you can, right. But, to understand that healthy eating is going to affect your mental health.
Yeah.
And that is going to make a difference if you're battling some kind of anxiety or something. So just those kinds of things that people may not understand. And so I've got a lot of these programs in the works, and I just have to figure out where the Lord is leading me to move on. But if anybody has any interest in the programs, I'd be amazed. I would love it.
Yeah, absolutely. There was I think it was ancient, or it was Native American.
Okay.
Where the chief was standing there, and a boy goes up to the chief. Chief, there's 2 wolves inside of me. One's bad and one's good. I don't know which one's going to win. And chief looks down a little. He looks up at the kid. He says, the one that's going to win is the one you feed.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
So just like the food, same as the mental.
Yeah.
What are you taking in? Those doom scrolls? How about it?
Yeah.
Are you looking at positive things? Are you looking at people like Ed Milet, John Gordon, Damon West, shout out, DamonWest.org, supporter? Damon, look forward to speaking with you after your book tour and you settle down a little bit, just about what we got going on. A lot of exciting things on the back end.
I love that.
And everybody, we are so thrilled that Jayvon is on board. I was freaking out last week. This thing does work.
Just a servant.
Hey, no, I am too. We're all servant leaderships here, conscious. We're going to bring down the servant conscious leadership space. We're going to spread it out into the community.
I love that.
Wave makers coming. Kim, you're the best. Thank you so much for coming on board.
Thank you so much for
with us.
having me. I love sitting down with you guys.
Absolutely. There's so much we could talk about. So
Absolutely.
we'll have you back. Maybe Danielle too.
Yeah, absolutely. I would
come
love
with you.
that. And by then, hopefully our program will be in the works and I'll have more info to give out.
It will be. And I have some thoughts on how we could potentially work together too along the way. I think it's a good segue up.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you so much for joining us at Ride the Wave. You guys take care. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in to Ride the Wave. It's been a pleasure having you with us as we explore ways to make a positive impact together. Remember, every little wave creates a ripple of change. We appreciate any support you can provide as we plan to build an all-inclusive, modern campus and empower communities. For details on how you can contribute through various platforms, please visit us at ridethewave.org. Until next time, keep riding the wave of change with us. I'm Jeff Fischer, signing off, but the journey continues.